Okay, so this chapter, chapter 12, is entitled Slouching Towards Thanksgiving. Now, slouching toward Thanksgiving, that phrase reminds me of this poem by William Butler Yeats. It is my favorite poem, and it's called The Second Coming. And at the end, it talks about how the second coming of the world, I don't know if you've heard of that, and how the Sphinx is going to go slouching towards Bethlehem and either destroy the world or make it a better place. I'm not sure, but to me, the poem reminds me of, that the Sphinx is going to destroy the world. So that is a poem by William Butler Yeats, if you want to read it and find out what my favorite poem is. So here we go, slouching toward Thanksgiving. So here he is, the poor kid. So we had Halloween the last time where he got beat up. And then, which I'm sure does not happen in Reardon. So his friend, the girl he was trying to impress, Penelope, she was surprised by that. And so now we are getting close to Thanksgiving, and he still does not have a single friend at his new school. Poor kid. All right. I walked like a zombie. Oh, look, another simile. Through the next few weeks in Reardon. Well, no, that's not exactly the right description. I mean, if I'd been walking around like a zombie, I might have been scary. So no, I wasn't a zombie at all. Not at all. Because you can't ignore a zombie. So that made me, it made me nothing. Zero, zilch, nada. This is an important part. So you guys need to focus on this one. In fact, if you think of everybody with a body, soul, and brain as a human, then I was the opposite of human. It was the loneliest time in my life. And whenever I get lonely, I grow a big zit on the end of my nose. This is intriguing to me. I don't know if you guys have this problem. I mean, I would think it's not because he's lonely. It's because he's depressed and he's not washing his face. But that's just me. If things didn't get better soon, I was going to turn into one giant walking, talking zit. So there we go. Big zit, zoop. Skin surface, hair follicle. There you go. Zitty, back here. And lonely, I woke up on the reservation as an Indian. And somewhere on the road to Reardon, I became something less than an Indian. And once I arrived in Reardon, I became something less than Indian. Those white kids did not talk to me. They barely looked at me. Well, Roger would nod his head at me, but he didn't socialize with me or anything. Remember, Roger was the one he beat up. I wonder if he punched him in the face. I wondered if maybe I should punch everybody in the face. Maybe they'd all pay attention to me then. I just walked from class to class alone. I sat at lunch alone. During PE, I stood in the corner of the gym and played catch with myself. Just tossed a basketball up and down, up and down, up and down. And I know you're thinking, okay, Mr. Sad Sack, how many ways are you going to tell us how depressed you were? And okay, maybe I'm overstating my case. Maybe I'm exaggerating. So let me tell you a few good things that I discovered during that awful time. And this is kind of why I like this book, because he is, even though he's having a really hard time, he still brings up some positive stuff. So let's look at what is good about his new school. First of all, I learned that I was smarter than most of those white kids. Oh, there were a couple of girls and one boy who were little Einsteins, and there was no way I'd ever be smarter than them. But I was way smarter than 99% of the others, and not just smart for an Indian, okay? I was smart, period. Let me give you an example. In geology class, the teacher, Mr. Dodge, was talking about petrified wood forests near George Washington on the Columbia River. I did not realize there was a town called George Washington. That's kind of funny to me. There's some irony. All right. And how it was pretty amazing that wood can turn into rock. I raised my hand. Yeah, Arnold, Mr. Dodge said. He was surprised. That was the first time I'd raised my hand in his class. I said, yeah, I was so articulate. If you don't know what that word is, look it up. Spit it out, Dodge said. Well, I said, petrified wood is not wood. My classmates stared at me. They couldn't believe that I was contradicting a teacher. If it's not wood, Dodge said, then why do they call it wood? I don't know, I said. I didn't name the stuff, but I know how it works. Uh-oh. Dodge's face was red. Hot red. I'd never seen an Indian look that red. So why do they call us Redskins? Okay, Arnold, if you're so smart, then tell us how it works. Well, what happens is when you have wood that's buried under dirt, then minerals and stuff sort of soak into the wood. They kind of melt the wood in the glue that holds the wood together. And then the minerals sort of take the place of the wood in the glue. I mean, the minerals keep the same shape as the wood. Like if the minerals took all the wood and glue out of a tree, then the tree would still be a tree, sort of, but it would be a tree made out of minerals. So you see, the wood has not turned into rocks. The rocks have replaced the wood. And I can't tell you the number of kids that have questioned me, and I did not quite handle it this way. Sometimes when you question me, I do kind of feel this way inside, but I try not to show it. Dodge stared hard at me. He was dangerously angry. A volcano. Mr. Dodge, which of these pyrotechnic giants will explode first? Okay, Arnold, where did you learn this fact? On the reservation? Yeah, we all know there's so much amazing science on the reservation. My classmates snickered. They pointed their fingers at me and giggled. Except for one. Gordy, the class genius. He raised his hand. Gordy, Dodge said, all happy and relieved and stuff, I'm sure you can tell us the truth. Dun, dun, dun. Well, actually, Gordy said, yeah, I'm pushing my book back. Gordy said, Arnold is right about petrified wood. That's what happens. Dodge suddenly went all pale. Yep, from blood red to snow white in about 2 seconds. If Gordy said it was true, then it was true. And even Dodge knew that. Oh my gosh, we teachers always have kids who are smarter than us. It just happens. And so, it's not very fun when you get shown up. My gosh, I can't even talk grammatically correct. Mr. Dodge wasn't even a real science teacher. That's what happens in small schools, Sometimes you don't have enough money to hire a real science teacher. Sometimes you have an old real science teacher who retires or quilts and leaves you without a replacement. And if you don't have a real science teacher, then you pick one of the other teachers and make him the science teacher. And that's why small town kids sometimes don't know the truth about petrified wood. Well, isn't that interesting? The fake science teacher said. Thank you for sharing that with us, Gordy. Yeah, that's right. Mr. Dodge thanked Gordy, but didn't say another word to me. Yep, now even the teachers were treating me like an idiot. I shrank back into my chair and remembered when I used to be a human being. I remember when people used to think I was smart. I remember when people used to think my brain was useful. Damaged by water for sure, and ready to do seizure at any moment, but still useful, and maybe even a little bit beautiful and sacred and magical. I totally think of my brain as beautiful, sacred, and magical. Yeah, okay, after class, I caught up to Gordy in the hallway. Hey, Gordy, I said. Thanks. Thanks for what? He said. Thanks for sticking up for me back there, for telling Dodge the truth. I didn't do it for you, Gordy said. I did it for science. The brain of many colors. Ooh. He walked away. I stood there and waited for the rocks to replace my bones and blood. I rode the bus home that night. Well, no. I rode the bus to the end of the line, which was the reservation border. And there I waited. My dad was supposed to pick me up, but he wasn't sure if he'd have enough gas money, especially if he was going to stop at the Res Casino and play slot machines first. I don't know about you, but if my dad stopped at the Res Casino to play slot machines when he didn't have enough money to pick me up, I would not be happy. My kids would probably throw a complete fit and turn me into the authorities. But here Junior is, and he kind of expects that from his dad. I waited for 30 minutes. Exactly. Then I started walking. Getting to school was always an adventure. After school, I'd ride the bus to the end of the line and wait for my folks. If they didn't come, I'd start walking, hitchhiking in the opposite direction. Somebody was usually heading back to home to the res, so I'd usually catch a ride. 3 times I had to walk the whole way home. 22 miles. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I got blisters each time. So how many times he had to walk? 3 times all the way home. 22 miles. Could you imagine? It'd like take me forever. It's crazy. He's very determined, that Junior. So here we go. This is how Junior gets to school. Monday. No gas money. 22 miles. I hitchhike. I hope you guys never hitchhike. That's all I have to say. Tuesday. Gas money. Car isn't running. So they have gas money, but the car isn't running. I hitchhike. Wednesday. Dad gives me a ride. Car breaks down 1 mile from school. I walk and get to school 30 minutes late. Thursday. Mom gives me a ride. Dad, too hungover. Clank, clatter, clank, clink. Thanks, Ma. Cough, cough. Let's see. Friday. No gas money. Nobody stops to pick me up. The price is right. Mrs. Bunn, you win. Squeal. So there's his dad just sitting there. Walk home. Or actually, there he is. Walk home, watch TV because he's so stinking tired. Next week, start over, but in a different order. Okay. Anyway, after my petrified wood day, I caught a ride with a Bureau of Indian Affairs guy, white guy, and he dropped me off right in front of my house. And remember, they said they don't like the Bureau of Indian Affairs people. Remember that was on his list, that you pretty much beat them up whenever you see them. I walked inside and saw that my mother was crying. I often walked inside to find my mother crying. What's wrong? I asked. It's your sister, she said. Did she run away again? She got married. Wow. I was freaked, but my mother and father were absolutely freaked. Indian families stick together like gorilla glue, the strongest adhesive in the world. My mother and father both lived within 2 miles of where they were born, and my grandmother lived 1 mile from where she was born. Ever since the Spokane Indian Reservation was founded back in 1881, nobody in my family had ever lived anywhere else. We spirits, remember his last name is Spirit, stay in one place. We are absolutely tribal. For good or bad, we don't leave one another. And now my mother and father had lost 2 kids to the outside world. I think they felt like failures. Or maybe they were just lonely. Or maybe they didn't know what they were feeling. I didn't know what to feel. Who could understand my sister after 7 years of living in the basement and watching TV after doing absolutely nothing at all? My sister decided she needed to change her life. I guess I'd kind of shamed her. If I was brave enough to go to Reardon, then she'd be brave enough to marry a Flathead Indian and move to Montana. Where'd you meet this guy? I asked my mother. At the casino. Your sister said he was a good poker player. I guess he travels to all the Indian casinos in the country. Nice. Oh, goodness. My stuff is falling off. I have my blankets there, like propping it up, so now I'm working. All right, here we go. She married him because he plays cards? She said he wasn't afraid to gamble everything, and that's the kind of man she wanted to spend her life with. Holy cow. I think that's the sign to me of the opposite of a person I want to spend my life with, somebody who would gamble everything. I couldn't believe it. My sister married a guy for a dang silly reason. But I suppose people often get married for dang silly reasons. Is he good looking? I asked. He's actually kind of ugly, my mother said. He has this hook nose and his eyes are way different sizes. Dang, my sister had married a lopsided eagle-nosed nomadic poker player. It made me feel smaller. I thought it was pretty tough, but I'd just have to dodge dirty looks from white kids while my sister would be dodging gunfire in beautiful Montana. Those Montana Indians were so tough that white people were scared of them. Can you imagine a place where white people are scared of Indians and not the other way around? That's Montana. And my sister had married one of those crazy Indians. She didn't even tell our parents or grandmother or me before she left. She called Mom from St. Ignatius, Montana, on the Flathead Indian Reservation and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm married. I'm a married woman now. I want to have 10 babies and live here forever and ever." How weird is that? It's almost romantic. And then I realized that my sister was trying to live a romance novel. Man, that takes courage and imagination. Well, it also took some degree of mental illness too, but I was suddenly happy for her and a little scared. Sorry. All right. The stranger from Montana. Think you're so tough, Junior, my only sister. An excerpt from the book. I want to have 10 babies and live here forever and ever, exclaimed Mary runs away. Darling, gushed what's-his-face. Their beer-smelly mouths met in a big kiss until what's-his-face had to burp. Bleep. Jeez. All right. Well, a lot scared, so he was feeling kind of scared for her. She was trying to live out her dream. We should have all been delirious that she'd moved out of the basement. We'd been trying to get her out of there for years. Of course, my mother and father would have been happy if she'd just gotten a part-time job at the post office or a trading post and maybe just moved into an upstairs bedroom in our house. But I just kept thinking that my sister's spirit hadn't been killed. She hadn't given up. This reservation had tried to suffocate her, had kept her trapped in a basement, and now she was out roaming the huge grassy fields of Montana. How cool! I felt inspired. Of course, my parents and grandmother were in shock. They thought my sister and I were going absolutely crazy. But I thought we were being warriors, and a warrior isn't afraid of confrontation. So I went to school the next day and walked right up to Gordy, the genius white boy. Gordy, I said, I need to talk to you. I don't have time, he said. Mr. Orcutt and I have to debug some PCs. Don't you hate PCs? They are sickly and fragile and vulnerable to viruses. PCs are like French people living during the bubonic plague. Wow, and people thought I was a freak. I much prefer Macs, don't you? He asked. They're so poetic. This guy was in love with computers. I wondered if he was secretly writing a romance about a skinny white boy genius who was having sex with a half-breed Apple computer. Oh my goodness. Computers are computers, I said. One or the other, it's all the same. Gordy sighed. So, Mr. Spirit, he said, are you going to bore me with your tautologies all day, or are you going to actually say something? Tautologies? What the heck were tautologies? I couldn't ask Gordy, because then he'd know I was an illiterate Indian idiot. You don't know what a tautology is, do you? He asked. Yes, I do, I said. Really, I do. Completely, I do. You're lying. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. How can you tell? Because your eyes dilated, your breathing rate increased a little bit, and you're starting to sweat. Okay, so Gordy was a human lie detector machine too. All right, I lied. I said, what is a tautology? Gordy sighed again. I hated that sigh. I wanted to punch that sigh in the face. A tautology is a repetition of the same sense in different words. Oh, I said, what the hell is he talking about? It's a redundancy. Oh, you mean redundant? Like saying the same thing over and over, but in a different way? Yes. Oh, so if I said something like, Gordy is a dick without ears and an ear without a dick, then that would be a tautology. Gordy smiled. That's not exactly a tautology, but it is funny. You have a singular wit. I laughed. Gordy laughed too. But then he realized that I wasn't laughing with him. I was laughing at him. What's so funny? He asked. I can't believe you said singular wit. That sounds like freaking British or something. Well, I am a bit of an Anglophile. An Anglophile? What's an Anglophile? It's someone who loves Mother England. God, this kid was an 80-year-old literature professor trapped in the body of a 15-year-old farm boy. Listen, Gordy, I said, I know. I know you're a genius and all, but you are one weird dude. I'm quite aware of my differences. I wouldn't classify them as weird. Don't get me wrong, I think weird is great. I mean, if you look at all the great people in history, Einstein, Michelangelo, Emily Dickinson, then you're looking at a bunch of weird people. Sorry, this chapter is long. I'm going to be late for class, Gordy said. You're going to be late for class. Perhaps you should, as they say, cut to the chase. I looked at Gordy. He was a big kid, actually, strong from bucking bales and driving trucks. He was probably the strongest geek in the world. I want to be your friend, I said. Excuse me? He asked. I want us to be friends, I said. Gordy stepped back. I assure you, he said, I am not a homosexual. Oh, no, I don't want to be friends that way. I just meant regular friends. I mean, you and I, we have a lot in common. Gordy studied me now. I was an Indian kid from the reservation. I was lonely and sad and isolated and terrified, just like Gordy. And so we did become friends. Not the best of friends, not like Rowdy and me. We didn't share secrets or dreams. No, we studied together. Gordy taught me how to study. Best of all, he taught me how to read. Listen, he said one afternoon in the library, you have to read a book 3 times before you know it. The first time you read it for the story, the plot, the movement from scene to scene that gives the book its momentum, its rhythm. It's like riding a raft down a river. You're just paying attention to the currents. Do you understand that? Not at all, I said. Yes, you do, he said. Okay, I do, I said. I really didn't, but Gordy believed in me. He wouldn't let me give up. The second time you read a book, you read it for its history, for its knowledge of history. You think about the meaning of each word and where that word came from. I mean, you read a novel that has the word spam in it, and you know where that word comes from, right? Spam is junk mail, I said. Yes, that's what it is, but who invented the word? Who first used it? And how was the meaning of the word changed since it was first used? I don't know, I said. Well, you have to look all that up. If you don't treat each word seriously, then you're not treating the novel seriously. I thought about my sister in Montana. Maybe romance novels were absolutely serious business. My sister certainly thought they were. I suddenly understood that if every moment in a book should be taken seriously, then every moment of a life should be taken seriously as well. I draw cartoons, I said. What's your point? Gordy asked. I take them seriously. I use them to understand the world. I use them to make fun of the world, to make fun of people. And sometimes I draw people because they're my friends and family, and I want to honor them. So you take your cartoons as seriously as you take the books. Yeah, I do, I said. That's kind of pathetic, isn't it? No, not at all, Gordy said. If you're good at it and you love it and it helps you navigate the river of the world, then it can't be wrong. Wow, this dude was a poet. My cartoons weren't just good for giggles. They were also good for poetry. Funny poetry, but poetry nonetheless. It was seriously funny stuff. But don't take anything too seriously either, Gordy said. The little dork could read minds too. He was like some, what's wrong today? All right, let's see, he was like some kind of Star Wars alien creature with invisible tentacles that sucked your thoughts out of your brain. You read a book for the story, for each of its words, Gordy said, and you draw your cartoons for the story, for each of the words and images. And yeah, you need to take that seriously, but you should also read and draw because really good books and cartoons give you a boner. I was shocked. Did you say books should give me a boner? Yes, I did. Are you serious? Yeah. Don't you get excited about books? I don't think that you're supposed to get that excited about books. You should get a boner. You have to get a boner, Gordy shouted. Come on. Jeez. All right, we ran into the Reardon High School library. Look at all these books, he said. There aren't that many, I said. It was a small library in a small high school in a small town. There are 3,412 books here, Gordy said. I know that because I counted them. Okay, now you're officially a freak, I said. Yes, it's a small library. It's a tiny one, but if you read one of these books a day, it would still take you almost 10 years to finish. What's your point? The world, even the smallest parts of it, is filled with things you don't know. Wow, that was a huge idea. Any town, even one as small as Reardon, was a place of mystery. And that meant that Welpinit, that smaller Indian town, was also a place of mystery. Okay, so it's like each of these books is a mystery. Every book is a mystery. And if you read all the books ever written, it's like you've read one giant mystery. And no matter how much you learn, you just keep on learning. There is so much more you need to learn. Yes. Gordy said, now that doesn't give you a boner? I am rock hard, I said. Gordy blushed. Well, I don't mean boner in the sexual sense, Gordy said. I don't think you should run through life with a real erect penis. But you should approach each book. You should approach life with the real possibility that you might get a metaphorical boner at any point. Oh, goodness. All right. A metaphorical boner, I shouted. What the heck is that? Gordy laughed. When I say boner, I really mean joy, he said. Then why didn't you say joy? You didn't have to say boner. Whenever I think about boners, I get confused. Boner is funnier and more joyful. Gordy and I laughed. He was an extremely weird dude, but he was the smartest person I'd ever known. He would always be the smartest person I'd ever known. And he certainly helped me through school. He not only tutored me and challenged me, but he made me realize that hard work, that the act of finishing, of completing, of accomplishing a task is joyous. At Welpenit, I was a freak because I loved books. At Reardon, I was a joyous freak. And my sister, she was a traveling freak. We were the freakiest brother and sister in history.